plan was simple: fly in a day early, sneak into the house, and jump into his arms. Leo, my husband of 5 years, thought I was still knee-deep in spreadsheets and lukewarm hotel coffee at a conference in Chicago. He'd been so supportive, insisting I go, even though I'd initially hesitated. "Go shine, baby," he'd said, his eyes crinkling at the corners the way they did when he was being utterly sincere. He even packed my favorite snacks for the flight. That's Leo for you: thoughtful, loving, my rock, or so I believed. The flight landed ahead of schedule. A good omen, I thought, practically vibrating with excitement. The cab ride home felt like an eternity. I pictured his face, the surprise, then the goofy grin spreading across his lips, the warmth of his hug. We'd order takeout, probably his favorite greasy pizza, and I'd tell him all about the boring conference, exaggerating the dullness to make him laugh. Simple. Perfect. I remember fumbling with the keys, my hands slightly sweaty. The house was quiet, which was normal for a Tuesday afternoon. He was probably in his home office, engrossed in some coding project, headphones on, oblivious to the world. The thought made me smile. I'd tiptoe in, maybe even film his reaction. I pushed the door open slowly, a giddy laugh bubbling in my chest. "Honey, The words died in my throat. The air in our hallway, usually smelling of old books and the cinnamon plug-in I adored, was thick with something else. A cloying, unfamiliar perfume. And then I heard it. Not Leo's usual typing or the low hum of his gaming PC. Laughter. A woman's laughter. High-pitched, a little breathless. And then Leo's voice, deeper, laced with an intimacy that wasn't meant for my ears. Not like this. My suitcase thumped softly onto the Persian rug in the hallway, the sound deafening in the sudden, terrifying silence that my arrival had seemingly caused. The plan was simple. The reality? It was about to shatter everything. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. For a beat, just a single stupid beat, I tried to rationalize it. A client meeting? His cousin Sophia, who had a laugh like a hyena? But the perfume, so cloyingly sweet, wasn't Sophia's earthy patchouli. And the tone of his voice, it was the voice he used late at night, tangled in our sheets, whispering promises. I crept forward, my carry-on still clutched in my hand like a shield. The laughter had stopped. Now there were hushed whispers, urgent and low. They knew someone was there, or something had disturbed them. Me. I was the something. Our living room opened up from the hallway. The door was slightly ajar. I could see a sliver of the room, the edge of our worn leather sofa, a discarded throw pillow on the floor, and 2 pairs of shoes. One pair was Leo's scuffed sneakers. The other, delicate strappy heels, black. Definitely not mine. My shoe collection leaned heavily towards sensible flats and hiking boots. My breath hitched. This was it, the point of no return. Part of me, the cowardly part, screamed to turn around, to run out the door and pretend I'd stuck to my original flight schedule, pretend this sickening knot in my stomach wasn't real. But another part, the part that loved Leo fiercely, the part that had built a life with him, needed to know, needed to see. I nudged the door open. There they were. Leo, my Leo, was on the sofa. And he wasn't alone. A woman, younger than me, with vibrant pink streaks in her blonde hair, was curled up against him. His arm was around her, his fingers tangled in that shockingly bright hair. Her head was on his chest, and they were looking at each other with an intensity that stole the air from my lungs. They weren't just talking, they were existing in a bubble, a world that clearly didn't include me. The woman giggled, a light, airy sound that scraped against my raw nerves. "You worry too much, Leoy," she said, her voice like sugar. Leoy? No one called him Leoy except his slightly dotty Aunt Carol. Leo sighed, but there was a smile playing on his lips. I know, it's just... Sophia gets back tomorrow. This was risky." Sophia, he called me Sophia, not my wife, not the woman I'm betraying, just Sophia, like I was an item on his to-do list, an obstacle. The blood drained from my face. I felt cold, so incredibly cold, despite the stuffy warmth of the room. The shock was a physical blow, leaving me winded and shaking. It was the woman who saw me first. Her eyes, wide and a startling shade of blue, flickered towards the doorway. Her smile faltered, then vanished, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated panic. She scrambled off Leo, pushing herself away from him as if he'd suddenly caught fire. "Oh my God," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. Leo followed her gaze. His head turned slowly, almost comically so, and then his eyes locked with mine. The color drained from his face. If I thought I felt cold before, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. His mouth opened, then closed again. He looked like a fish gasping for air. The transformation was horrifying. The loving, confident man I knew vanished, replaced by this stranger, caught and cornered. "Sophia," he finally choked out, his voice hoarse. He stood up, stumbling slightly, his hands raised as if to ward me off, or perhaps plead for understanding, as if there was any understanding to be had. "Don't," I said, and my voice was surprisingly steady, dangerously calm. "Don't you dare say another word." The pink-haired girl was now standing awkwardly by the fireplace, wringing her hands. She looked young, barely out of her teens, dressed in ripped jeans and a band t-shirt that was probably older than she was. A kid. He was cheating on me with a kid. The thought sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. "Sophia, please," Leo begged, taking a step towards me. "Let me explain." "Explain?" I echoed, and this time a tremor ran through my voice. "Explain what, Leo? Explain how you meticulously planned this, how you encouraged me to go on this trip, how you packed my favorite snacks while you were probably already texting her." My gaze flicked to the girl, who flinched. It's not like that," he stammered, running a hand through his already messy hair. He looked pathetic. Utterly pathetic. "Then what is it like, Leo?" I challenged, my voice rising. "Enlighten me, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you couldn't wait for me to leave so you could have your little play date." The girl whimpered. "I should go." "Oh, no, you don't," I snapped, my attention zeroing in on her. "You stay right there. You're part of this masterpiece of betrayal. You don't get to just slink away." She looked terrified, but she stayed put, her eyes darting between me and Leo. Leo tried again. "Sophia, listen to me. Her name is Tiffany, and it was a mistake. A huge, stupid mistake." "A mistake?" I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that didn't feel like my own. "How long, Leo? How long has this mistake been going on?" He hesitated. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. That was answer enough. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was calculated. This was a pattern. "Weeks?" I pressed. "Months?" He swallowed hard. "A couple of months," he mumbled, looking at the floor. "A couple of months, 2 months of lies, 2 months of him looking me in the eyes, telling me he loved me, while he was with her." My mind reeled, replaying the past 8 weeks, the slightly distracted air he sometimes had, which I'd attributed to work stress, the late nights he said he was spending at the office, the sudden new interest in a band I'd never heard of, probably her favorite. It all clicked into place, each memory a fresh stab to the heart. The conference. He'd been almost too eager for me to go. "It'll be good for your career, babe," he'd said, kissing my forehead. Was that when he'd planned this? To have her here, in our home, in our bed? The thought made me physically ill. "In our house, Leo?" I whispered, the fight suddenly draining out of me, replaced by a profound, aching sadness. "You brought her into our home?" He flinched as if I'd struck him. "It only happened here a couple of times," he said, as if that made it any better. "Usually we met elsewhere." "Oh, that's comforting," I said, sarcasm dripping from every word. "I feel so much better knowing you occasionally respected our marriage vows enough to defile some anonymous motel room instead of our sofa." Tiffany started to cry, quiet, hiccuping sobs. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But she was a willing participant in this. She knew he was married. There was a faint indentation on his left ring finger where his wedding band usually sat. He wasn't wearing it now. I hadn't even noticed until that moment. Another small, deliberate deception. Get out, I said, my voice flat. What? Leo asked, looking bewildered. Get out, I repeated, louder this time, pointing towards the door. Both of you, pack your things, Tiffany, or whatever your name is, and leave my house. Sophia, please, we need to talk about this, Leo pleaded, his face a mask of desperation. Don't do this. Do what, Leo? I shot back. React to you cheating on me in our own home? What did you expect? A pat on the back? A round of applause for your audacity? My hands were shaking, and I clenched them into fists. There's nothing to talk about right now except your departure. I need you gone. Tiffany, to her credit, didn't need telling twice. She grabbed a small, brightly colored backpack I hadn't noticed before, shoved her feet into her ridiculous heels, and practically bolted for the door, muttering a sorry that was barely audible. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at Leo. She just fled. Good riddance. Now it was just me and Leo. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. He stood there looking lost and broken. A small, selfish part of me felt a flicker of satisfaction at his distress, but it was quickly overwhelmed by the tidal wave of my own pain. Sophia, he began, his voice thick with emotion. I am so, so sorry. You have to believe me. This wasn't me. I don't know why I did it. I don't know. Stupid. Lonely, maybe. Lonely? I scoffed. You were lonely, Leo? We live together. We share a bed. We talk every single day. How could you possibly be lonely? Or was that the problem? Was I not enough? The insecurity, sharp and unwelcome, pricked at me. No, not lonely for company, he tried to explain, stumbling over his words. It's complicated. Work has been stressful, and you've been so focused on the conference. Oh, so this is my fault now? I cut him off, my anger flaring anew. Because I was working hard? Because I was trying to build something for us? Is that your excuse? No, of course not. It's my fault. All my fault. I was weak and I made a terrible choice. Tiffany, she was just there. An escape, I guess. It didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything? I repeated, my voice dangerously low. It meant enough for you to lie to me for months. It meant enough for you to bring her into our home. It meant enough for you to risk everything we've built. Don't you dare tell me it didn't mean anything, Leo. It clearly meant more than I did in those moments. He looked down, shame written all over his face. That's not true. You mean everything to me, Sophia. You have to know that. I thought I did, I said, my voice cracking. But your actions today, your actions for the past 2 months, they tell a very different story. What I know is that the man I trusted, the man I loved, the man I built my life with, is capable of looking me in the eye and lying. He's capable of this monumental betrayal. I walked past him, into our bedroom. Our bedroom. The air in here felt tainted too. I could almost smell that cheap perfume lingering. I went to the closet and pulled out an overnight bag. What are you doing? Leo asked, following me, his voice filled with panic. I'm leaving, I said, stuffing a few clothes haphazardly into the bag. Toiletries, my laptop, just the essentials. Leaving? Sophia, no, don't leave. We can fix this. I know we can. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. We'll go to therapy. I'll never speak to her again. I'll quit my job if I have to, if that's where the temptation started. Anything. His desperation was palpable, but it didn't move me. Not anymore. The wound was too fresh, too deep. Fix this? I turned to face him, my bag in my hand. Leo, you didn't just break a plate that can be glued back together. You took a sledgehammer to the foundations of our marriage. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm still the man you married, he insisted, his eyes pleading. I got lost. Please, give me a chance to find my way back, to earn back your trust. Trust? I let out a hollow laugh. Trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets, Leo. and you just kicked over the biggest bucket imaginable. I need space. I need to think. I need to be somewhere that doesn't feel contaminated by your lies. I walked back towards the front door. He followed, still begging, still pleading. Where will you go? I don't know, I said honestly. A hotel, my sister's place. Anywhere but here. I opened the front door. The cool afternoon air felt like a blessing on my heated skin. Sophia, please don't do this, he whispered, his hand reaching for my arm. I flinched away from his touch. Don't touch me, Leo. Not right now. The hurt in his eyes was profound, but it couldn't compare to the chasm that had opened up inside me. I'll be in touch, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. About things. About our life, our house, our future, or lack thereof. And then I walked out. I walked away from my home, from my husband, from the life I thought I had. Each step was agony, but each step also felt like a tiny reclaiming of myself. The surprise I'd planned had backfired spectacularly. Instead of a joyful reunion, I'd uncovered a devastating truth. The cab ride to the nearest hotel was a blur of tears and choked sobs. The friendly cab driver kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, concern etched on his face, but he thankfully didn't say anything. I checked into a sterile, anonymous room, the kind I'd been so eager to escape just hours before. Now, it felt like a sanctuary. Alone in the quiet of the hotel room, the full weight of what had happened crashed down on me. Betrayal. It was such a simple word, but it encompassed a universe of pain. Leo, my Leo. How could he? Why? The questions echoed in my mind, relentless and unanswerable. I replayed the scene in our living room over and over. The girl's surprised face, Leo's guilt, his pathetic excuses. Each detail was a fresh twist of the knife. The image of them together on our sofa, his arm around her, was seared into my brain. My phone started buzzing. Leo. Of course. I ignored it. It buzzed again and again. A string of texts followed. Sophia, please pick up. I'm so sorry. We need to talk. I love you. That last one felt like a slap in the face. Love? Is this what love looked like? If this was love, I wanted no part of it. I turned my phone off. I couldn't deal with him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The hours that followed were a torment. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. I saw his face, not the loving one I cherished, but the guilty, deceitful one. I saw her, the young, pink-haired girl who had, wittingly or unwittingly, helped destroy my marriage. I thought about our life together, the laughter, the dreams we'd shared, the struggles we'd overcome. Had it all been a lie? Had he been faking it for months, or even longer? The doubt was a corrosive acid, eating away at every happy memory. The next morning I woke up feeling hollowed out, but with a strange sort of clarity. The initial shock and rage were still there, simmering beneath the surface, but a cold resolve was beginning to form. I couldn't go back, not to the way things were. Even if he was truly sorry, even if he promised to change, how could I ever trust him again? How could I ever look at him without seeing her, without remembering this agonizing betrayal? I turned my phone back on. Dozens of missed calls from Leo, voicemails too. I couldn't bring myself to listen to them. There was also a text from my sister, Laura. Hey, you okay? Mom said you sounded a bit off when you called her from Chicago. Just checking in. I'd called my mom briefly from the airport, excited about surprising Leo. The memory made my stomach clench. I decided to call Laura. I needed to talk to someone who wasn't Leo. Sophia, hey, what's up? Laura's cheerful voice was a welcome sound. And then it all came pouring out. The surprise, the perfume, the laughter, the girl, Leo's face, his lies, everything. I sobbed my way through the story, and Laura listened patiently, interjecting with gasps of disbelief and murmurs of sympathy. That absolute bastard, she seethed when I finally finished. I'm going to kill him. Seriously, Sophia, just say the word and I'll fly over there and— No, don't, I said, a watery chuckle escaping me. Violence won't solve anything, though the thought is— Tempting. So, what are you going to do? Laura asked, her voice softening. Are you at a hotel? Yeah, I said. I I think I need to come home, to Mom and Dad's, just for a bit. I can't be in this city right now. I can't be near him. Of course, Laura said immediately. Come home. We'll take care of you. Screw Leo. You deserve so much better. Her unwavering support was a balm to my shattered spirit. Knowing I had somewhere to go, someone to lean on, made the unbearable feel slightly more manageable. Before I could book a flight, however, there was another surprise waiting for me. It came in the form of an email. The sender, Tiffany. The subject line simply read, I'm so sorry. My first instinct was to delete it. What could she possibly say that would make any difference? But curiosity, or perhaps a masochistic need to understand, made me open it. The email was surprisingly articulate for someone who had looked like a deer in headlights the day before. Dear Sophia, I know nothing I can say will make what happened okay. It wasn't okay. It was wrong, and I am truly, deeply sorry for the pain I've caused you. I know sorry isn't enough, but I don't know what else to say. I'm not writing this to make excuses for myself or for Leo. What we did was inexcusable. But I did want you to know a few things, not that it changes anything, but maybe for your own peace of mind, if that's even possible right now. Leo told me you two were having problems. Serious problems. He said you were distant, that you were drifting apart, that you were probably going to separate soon anyway. He made it sound like your marriage was already over, just not officially. He said you barely spoke, that you lived separate lives under the same roof. My blood ran cold. He'd told her what? Distant? Drifting apart? We'd had our ups and downs, like any couple, but I never thought we were on the verge of separation. We'd just been planning a second honeymoon for our anniversary. We talked about kids, for crying out loud. The email continued. I know that's no excuse for my involvement. I should have known better. A married man is a married man. But I was stupid, and I guess I wanted to believe him. He can be very charming, very persuasive. He made me feel special. Yesterday, when you walked in, the look on your face. I'll never forget it. And the way he looked at you, the panic in his eyes. It wasn't just because he got caught. I saw something else there. I saw that he was terrified of losing you. And I realized then that everything he'd told me about your marriage, about you, was probably a lie. Or at least a massive distortion of the truth designed to make me feel less guilty and to get what he wanted. He called me last night, after I left. He was a mess. Kept saying he'd ruined everything, that he loved you, that he didn't know why he'd done it. He tried to make it sound like I was the one who pursued him, but that wasn't true. He approached me. He started it. I'm not telling you this to hurt you more, or to shift blame. I own my part in this, but I thought you should know the kind of manipulation he was capable of, even towards me. He wasn't just betraying you, he was playing me too, in a different way. I've blocked his number. I don't want anything more to do with him. He's toxic. Again, I am so incredibly sorry. I wish I could take it all back. I hope one day you can find it in your heart to heal from this. You deserve happiness. Sincerely, Tiffany. I read the email 3 times. Manipulation. He'd painted me as a distant, uncaring wife to her, to justify his affair. He'd lied to her, just as he'd lied to me. The betrayal deepened, twisted into something even uglier. It wasn't just a physical infidelity. It was a calculated dismantling of my character to another woman. And then, a tiny, unexpected flicker. Not forgiveness, not by a long shot, but a strange sort of understanding for Tiffany. She was young, perhaps naive, and Leo had clearly fed her a carefully constructed narrative. She was still culpable, yes, but she was also, to some extent, another victim of his deceit. The email, surprisingly, gave me a strange sense of strength. It confirmed Leo's duplicity went beyond just the affair itself. It showed a pattern of manipulation, and it showed that Tiffany, at least, had the decency to apologize and cut ties. It also, in a perverse way, made my decision clearer. This wasn't just a mistake born of loneliness or opportunity, as Leo had tried to claim. This was a conscious series of choices built on a foundation of lies, not just to me, but to the other woman as well. I took a deep breath. I still needed to talk to Leo, eventually. There were practicalities to sort out, but the thought of reconciliation, of fixing this, felt more remote than ever. He hadn't just cheated, he had actively tried to rewrite our reality to suit his selfish desires. I booked my flight home to my parents. As the plane took off, leaving the city where my life had imploded, I didn't look back. I looked forward. The path ahead was terrifyingly uncertain, shrouded in fog. There would be pain, there would be grief for the life I'd lost, for the man I thought Leo was. But there was also a tiny spark of something else: resilience. The surprise I'd intended for Leo had indeed happened. It just wasn't the one I'd planned. I was the one who got the surprise, a brutal, life-altering one. And in the wreckage of it all, I had to find a way to build something new, something for myself, something that no betrayal could ever touch. The journey would be long, and it had only just begun. But for the first time since I'd opened that door, I felt a flicker, not of hope, perhaps, but of determination. I would survive this. I had to. The days at my parents' house were a blur of sympathetic looks, endless cups of tea, and Laura's fierce protective anger. My mom fussed, trying to feed me my favorite childhood comfort foods, while my dad, a man of few words, would just pat my hand occasionally, his eyes filled with a deep, sorrowful understanding. It was both comforting and suffocating. I loved them for it, but part of me just wanted to be left alone to rage and weep without an audience. Leo continued to call, and text, and email, long, rambling messages filled with apologies, self-recriminations, and desperate pleas for me to talk to him. He swore Tiffany's email was full of lies, that she was trying to make herself look better, that he was the victim of her advances. It was pathetic. After reading Tiffany's surprisingly candid email, his denials just sounded hollow, another layer of deceit. He didn't know I knew about his manipulative stories to her. One afternoon, about a week after I'd left, I was sitting on the porch swing, watching the autumn leaves fall, when a car pulled up. Not Leo's car. This was a sleek, unfamiliar sedan. A woman got out. She was older, maybe in her late 50s, impeccably dressed, with an air of quiet authority. It was Leo's mother, Eleanor. My heart sank. I hadn't spoken to her since before. We'd always had a cordial, if not overly close, relationship. She was a reserved woman, proud and fiercely protective of her only son. I braced myself for a lecture, for an appeal on Leo's behalf, for accusations. "Sophia," she said, her voice even as she walked up the porch steps. "May I sit down?" I nodded mutely, gesturing to the wicker chair opposite the swing. She sat, her posture perfect, her hands clasped in her lap. For a long moment she just looked at me, her expression unreadable. Then she sighed, a deep, weary sound. "I won't pretend to understand the entirety of what happened, Sophia," she began, her voice softer than I expected. Leo has told me his version, and I've spoken to him enough over the years to know that his version often omits certain uncomfortable truths." I was taken aback. This was not the defense of her son I had anticipated. "He is my son," she continued, "and I love him. But I am not blind to his flaws. He has a regrettable tendency, to seek validation in the wrong places, to run from problems rather than confront them. It seems he has made a truly catastrophic mess of things this time." I just listened, unsure how to respond. "I'm not here to ask you to forgive him," Eleanor said, meeting my gaze directly. "That is your decision, and yours alone. And frankly, from what little he's reluctantly confessed, and what I can infer, I wouldn't blame you if you never wanted to see him again." A tear escaped my eye, and I quickly wiped it away. "What I am here to say," she went on, "is that whatever you choose, I want you to know that I always cared for you, Sophia. You were a good wife to him. You are a good person, and you don't deserve this. No one does." Her words, so unexpected, so validating, broke through a little of the numbness I'd been wrapped in. More tears came, and this time I didn't try to stop them. Eleanor reached into her purse and handed me a crisp linen handkerchief. "He told me about the girl Tiffany," she said quietly. "He tried to paint her as some sort of temptress. I suspect the truth is far more mundane and far more about his own weaknesses. He told her we were basically already separated," I choked out, the words still tasting like poison. "He lied to her about me, about us, to make it easier for him to do what he did." Eleanor's lips thinned. "That is despicable, and sadly not entirely surprising. Leo has always had a talent for weaving narratives that cast him in the most favorable light, regardless of the facts." She paused, then added, "His father was much the same. It seems some traits, regrettably, are passed down." This was a revelation. I'd never known much about Leo's father. He'd passed away when Leo was a teenager. Leo rarely spoke of him. To hear this from Eleanor, this admission of a pattern, a familial flaw, it didn't excuse Leo, but it somehow contextualized him. It made him seem less like a monster, uniquely designed to destroy my happiness, and more like a flawed, weak man, repeating mistakes perhaps seen in his own childhood. "I also came to give you this," Eleanor said, reaching into her purse again. She pulled out a thick envelope. "It's from Leo. He wanted me to give it to you. He said you wouldn't take his calls." I eyed the envelope with suspicion. "What is it?" "I believe it's a letter," she said. "And something else. He didn't tell me the specifics. He just asked me, as his mother, to appeal to you to at least read it." My first instinct was to refuse, to tell her to take it back to him. But looking at Eleanor's tired, kind eyes, I found I couldn't. She had come here, not to make excuses for her son, but to offer me a strange kind of solace. She deserved the courtesy of me accepting the envelope, even if I never read its contents. "Thank you, Eleanor," I said, taking it. "For coming. For this. For your honesty." She gave me a small, sad smile. "Take care of yourself, Sophia. Whatever happens, prioritize your own well-being. You've been through an ordeal." She stood up. "I'll see myself out." I watched her go, the envelope heavy in my lap. It felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. After her car disappeared down the drive, I sat there for a long time, staring at it. Leo's familiar handwriting was on the front. "To Sophia." With trembling fingers, I opened it. Inside, there was indeed a letter, several pages long, handwritten. And beneath it, something else. A small velvet ring box. My breath caught. Number he wouldn't. He couldn't. My hands shook so much I could barely open the box. When I finally did, I gasped. It wasn't my engagement ring or my wedding band. It was a new ring. A delicate diamond solitaire, clearly expensive, and utterly, breathtakingly inappropriate. I dropped the box as if it had burned me. What was he thinking? Did he honestly believe a piece of jewelry could fix this? That he could buy my forgiveness? The audacity of it, the sheer tone deafness, was astounding. Anger, hot and fierce, surged through me again, momentarily eclipsing the sadness. I picked up the letter, my eyes scanning the pages, looking for an explanation for this insult. His letter was what I expected. Page after page of apologies, of "I don't know why I did it," of "I'll never forgive myself," of "You are the only one for me." He wrote about how empty the house felt without me. He wrote about his regret, his shame. He wrote about how he'd been unhappy at work, how he'd felt a midlife crisis looming. He was 35, hardly midlife. How Tiffany had been a meaningless distraction that had somehow spiraled out of control. Standard stuff, predictable stuff, nothing that touched the core of the betrayal, the calculated lies he'd told Tiffany about me. And then, at the end, he addressed the ring. "I know this can't fix what I broke, Sophia. Nothing can. But I wanted to give you this as a promise that if you would ever consider giving us, another chance, even a millionth chance, I would spend the rest of my life re-earning your trust. I would marry you all over again, every day, if that's what it took. This isn't to buy you, it's to show you that my commitment, despite my horrific actions, is still to you and only you. I was a fool, an idiot, a destructive force, but I love you. I know you don't believe it now, but I do. I stared at the letter, then at the rejected ring box lying on the porch floor. A promise? This felt more like a desperate, misguided attempt at manipulation, a grand gesture designed to overwrite the ugliness of his affair. But then a different thought surfaced, a hook from his own words. My commitment is still to you. If that were true, if he truly wanted to show commitment, there were other ways. Practical ways. Ways that didn't involve expensive, emotionally loaded gifts. A new kind of resolve settled in me. Not about forgiveness or reconciliation, but about control, about taking back my narrative. I went inside, found a sturdy envelope, and carefully placed the ring box inside. I didn't write a note. The empty box returned would be message enough for that particular gesture. But his letter, his words about his commitment, that gave me an idea. A surprising, audacious idea. The next day I called a lawyer, a divorce lawyer. I met with her a few days later. Mrs. Henderson was sharp, no nonsense, and incredibly perceptive. I told her everything. The surprise return, the affair, Tiffany's email, Eleanor's visit, the letter, the ring. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Well, Mr. Leo Collins has certainly dug himself a rather impressive hole. The ring was a particularly flamboyant misstep. So, Sophia, what do you want to do? I want a divorce, I said, the words tasting strange but also liberating on my tongue. Understandable, she said. We can file immediately. Given the circumstances, particularly the infidelity and his apparent admission in this letter, she gestured to the copy I'd given her. We have a strong position. I know, I said, but there's something else. His letter. He talks about commitment, about doing anything. Well, I'm going to take him at his word, not for reconciliation, but for fairness. And I laid out my idea. It was unconventional. It was bold. And it was, in its own way, a direct response to the depth of his betrayal and his sudden, desperate claims of wanting to make things right. I didn't just want a divorce. I wanted the house. Our house. The one he had defiled. I wanted it free and clear. I wanted him to sign it over to me as a tangible acknowledgement of the damage he had done, of the life he had shattered within its walls. It wasn't about the monetary value, not primarily. It was symbolic. It was about him making a real, concrete sacrifice, not just offering empty words and inappropriate jewelry. Mrs. Henderson raised an eyebrow. That's a significant ask, Sophia, especially if you want it free and clear of his share of the equity. Marital assets are typically divided. I know, I said. But he wrote, I'll do anything. He said his commitment is to me. If he truly means that, if he truly wants to show remorse in a way that isn't just words or a gilt diamond, then this is how. He brought his affair into our home. He tainted it. Let him give it to me so I can cleanse it, or sell it, whatever I choose. It's the least he can do to prove any of his remorse is genuine. It was a gamble, a huge one. He could refuse. He probably would refuse. It was, objectively, an outrageous demand. But as I said it, I felt a surge of power I hadn't felt since I'd walked in on them. I was no longer just a victim of his betrayal. I was taking control. I was dictating terms, based on his own desperate declarations. Mrs. Henderson smiled slowly. I like it, she said. It's audacious. And given his apparent state of desperation, and his mother's rather insightful comments about his character, he might just be foolish enough, or guilty enough, to agree. And so, we drafted the proposal. Divorce papers, yes. But also, this one, singular, extraordinary demand regarding the house. We sent it to Leo, via his mother, as I still wasn't speaking to him directly. I returned the ring separately, with no note. The wait for his response was agonizing. Days turned into a week. I oscillated between thinking I was crazy for asking and a steely conviction that it was the only just outcome. Laura thought I was a genius. My mom was worried it would antagonize him. My dad just said, "Good for you, kiddo. Make him pay." Then, one evening, an email arrived from Eleanor. "Sophia, Leo has received your proposal. He has signed the papers. All of them. He asked me to tell you that he agrees to your terms regarding the house. He said to tell you, it's the least I can do. It's her house now. Maybe one day she'll forgive me, but this isn't about that. This is about acknowledging what I destroyed. He is not doing well, Sophia, but perhaps this is a step for him too. I don't know. Take care, Eleanor." I read it and then reread it. He'd agreed. He'd actually agreed. He was going to sign over the house. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel joy. I felt a profound sense of deflation, and then slowly, a quiet, grim satisfaction. It wasn't a victory, because there are no victories in the ruins of a marriage, but it was something. It was an acknowledgement. It was a consequence. The surprise I'd planned for Leo, my early return, had led to a cascade of other surprises. His betrayal, Tiffany's email, Eleanor's unexpected kindness and honesty, Leo's pathetic grand gesture with the ring, and now, this, his shocking acquiescence to my demand. The road ahead was still long. The divorce needed to be finalized. I had to decide what to do with the house. My house. Could I ever live there again? Could I cleanse it of the memories? Or would selling it be the only way to truly move on? I didn't have the answers yet, but as I sat there, Eleanor's email glowing on my laptop screen, I knew one thing. I had faced the worst betrayal imaginable, and I hadn't just survived. I had found a strength I didn't know I possessed. I had taken a devastating surprise and, in my own way, turned it into a reclaiming of my power, my space, and my future. The story wasn't over. My story was just beginning. A new chapter, written on my own terms, and that, perhaps, was the most surprising outcome of all.